Hey guys, welcome to Home Sweet Homeschool. My name is Ashley and I'm a homeschooling mom to one. And today I'm participating in a collab hosted by Katie over at Life at the Mundane, and we're sharing our favorite and not so favorite read-alouds in hopes that it will help you make a book list for this upcoming school year. So the first thing that I want to talk about before I share my favorites and my not so favorite is where I even get the idea for which books to pick, because I know that's hard for some people. They don't know where to look or where to find really good literature. I love children's literature. I was a teacher in kindergarten for many, many years, and every time I would read a book to my kids, I would say, oh, this is one of my favorites, and they would say, every book is your favorite. And that's kind of true. I do love children's literature, but it is kind of hard to know what's good out there, and so it's important to find some places or know where to go to look. And I discovered Julie Bogart from Brave Writer when we first started homeschooling, and I didn't really get into the program until like the end of our first homeschool year. So every year they come out with arrow guides. Well, we use the arrow guides because that's kind of the age range for my son. They come up with arrow guides every year, and what arrow guides are, it's just a really natural way to use literature to teach writing mechanics and grammar and literary elements and all those kind of things. And so I knew that's what I wanted in our homeschool. I did the same kind of thing at school. We would use a book to kind of teach from all week, and I wanted to do that with my son. But I wasn't very familiar with chapter books. I mean, I was teaching kindergartners. So when I found Brave Writer, I knew I'd hit the jackpot. What I'm going to try to do is down in the description box, I'm going to link the single issues of the arrow guide. Now, if you have older kids, there is something called the Boomerang, and then they just released a program called Dart that is for the younger kids. So I'm more familiar with the arrow guide, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. I do have some videos on Brave Writer where I walk you through how we use it that you can go back and watch, but it is just kind of a way to you take your read aloud and you use that read aloud to teach language arts. And so the arrow single issues are what I buy from. She comes out with new ones every year, 10 new ones every year, and you can buy the entire list of arrow guides for the whole year, or you can buy single issues, and that's what I do. I go look at the arrow guide single issue list. I look down the list and see if there's any books we already own that I've picked up at the Goodwill or used bookstores. And then I also make a list of things that look interesting or I think my son would like, so that when I am out at the Goodwill or at a yard sale or at the used bookstore, I can pick up those books and just mark them off the list. So when I say arrow guide, this is what I'm talking about. Now this is front, and it's hard, the glare is really bad. This is from the Mary Poppins book that we did. So you purchase the arrow guide from her, and then you have to purchase the book separately wherever you want to purchase it from. So the arrow guide is just separated by weeks. I'm going to try to get this up here. So this is week 1, and as you can see, we have our marks on it. And the arrow guide's going to have things like copy work and dictation and spelling and your grammar and your writing mechanics. There's big, juicy questions, so you can have these really good conversations when you're finished with the books. And there's even ideas for book parties when you get finished, so you can celebrate reading that book. It's full of 4 weeks of instruction. And you really can do it. It comes with a guide of how to use it, but like everything else that I use in my house, I adapt it to work for us. So we read aloud 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday, and I usually do Brave Writer once or twice a week during our morning basket. So it's just a great addition to our homeschool. So if you want to know more about that, I do have videos on how I use an arrow guide. So let's get into what our favorites were. Now, we've only been homeschooling for 2 years, and we have read a lot of books, but I asked my son to tell me his favorite, and then I picked, I really agreed with his. And then I picked another one that was one of my favorites that he had forgotten about. So we've read a ton of books. The great thing about Brave Writer is it's a team that reads all these books, and so you are getting diverse characters, you're getting all types of genres, you're getting poetry, you're getting historical fiction. So if you're looking for that kind of thing, that's a great place to go. So like I said, that link will be down below. So when I asked my son was a fifth grader this past year, what his favorite book was that we have read aloud, he chose Frindle. Frindle is by Andrew Clements, and it's about a boy who's considered a troublemaker in school. And you're like, well, is he really a troublemaker, or does he just have really good ideas? He learns in his class how words are created, and so he takes it upon himself to make a new word for pen, and he comes up with Frindle. But things quickly get out of hand with that word, and it really starts to catch on. It's a really, really cute read to see what all happens and how easy it is for things to catch on and people start to use it. So he really enjoyed Frindle. The other one, he said, when he came back to him, and he's like, oh, but I had another favorite. He loved Pippi Longstocking. And so this was a really quick read. We did this in December to just so we would have just a really good read aloud, just a quick one and an easy one. He loved this. He thought she was really funny. He thought that she was always up to something. He loved that she had a monkey and a horse, and she was just so unconventional, and he just thought she was a great character. So, and we were going to watch the movie that goes along with this. So anytime you can pair a book and a movie together, that's always fun too. And then one of my favorites, and this is something we shared together, and it may not be for everybody, but this is a series of unfortunate events. It's the very first book. It's called A Bad Beginning. It's by Lemony Snicket. There are 13 books in this series, and we have found them all. That was kind of my son's goal. After we read this one, this is the only one that has an arrow guide. It's the first one. But we had to go and find all of them. There's 13 of them, and they are all wonderful. And not only is the book series really well written, there's a show on Netflix with Neil Patrick Harris as Count Olaf, and it is wonderful. We spent a lot of our time last year watching the next episode of a series of unfortunate events because it is such a well-written show. And you can learn so much from it. The characters constantly break the fourth wall, which is something you learn about in your arrow guides. There's so much vocabulary, and it's written so well that we totally enjoyed it. So I do recommend a series of unfortunate events. If you have some older upper elementary kids, I think they would really like it. So that is one of my favorites. Now I have tons of favorites. If you ask any of my past kids at school, they know I love all kinds of books. But I had to narrow it down, so I narrowed it down to these three. This is probably my favorite, though, just because I enjoy the books and the show so much, and I just can't recommend them enough. Another thing I love about this book, and this is something that's mentioned in the arrow guides, is the hook. Like, it's so important when you read a book that they hook you at the beginning because they want you to keep reading the rest of the book. And I think this is an excellent beginning to a story, and I want to read it to you. So in chapter 1, it says, if you're interested in stories with happy endings, you would be better off reading some other book. In this book, not only is there no happy ending, there is no happy beginning and very few happy things in the middle. If that doesn't make you want to read the book, I don't know what would. It's just not your typical book. I mean, it does have, the kids have a lot of hardships, but it's just so, it's so good. And I really recommend that you watch this series too. We've seen the movie with Jim Carrey as Count Olaf, and I didn't like it as much, but I absolutely loved the Netflix series. Now, as bad as I hate it, I have to pick a book that we've read that wasn't my favorite. And if you've watched some of my day in the life videos, I did share that in one of my videos. We started reading Mary Poppins. As you can see, I bought the arrow guide for Mary Poppins. This is what this one is. And we did the copy work. We started on week 1. It was okay to start with. Now, it was very different from the movie. I've seen the original Disney movie many, many years ago. But this book was very different from the movie and from, of course, the movies that have came out recently. My son has seen those. I've not seen those. So I got Mary Poppins. It is on the list. It's on the arrow guide list. And we started reading it, and we just did not enjoy it. The chapters were super duper long, and I lose my son. He has ADHD, and a lot of times if it's just too many words and there's not pictures for him to look at, he just kind of, he zones out and he's somewhere else. And he was not interested in the story at all. I didn't like it because Mary Poppins came across as being just very rude and very snarky, and almost like the kids were a bother to her, and it was almost as if the kids were afraid of her, and I just didn't like it. That's not how she came across in the movie. She was like this wonderful little nanny, who could just do all kinds of magical things, and that's not how she came across in this. And every day when it was time for us to do our read aloud, we both kind of dreaded it, and I'm like, why are we doing that? We have the ability in our homeschool, if something isn't working, we can change it. We didn't just give up on reading and say, okay, we're never going to do a read aloud again. We just picked a new one. And we read Swiss Family Robinson instead, and it was much better for us. So if you're reading a book out loud and your kids are just not into it and y'all are dreading this and you're not getting anything out of it, then stop. So we stopped Mary Poppins probably at about chapter 6. We had just had enough. We were like, we're not into this anymore. So you may love Mary Poppins. This may be one of your favorite books, and that's great because, somebody likes it. It's been made into all kinds of movies. But for us, we just didn't enjoy it. And when I sat down to look at our other read-alouds that we had done this year and then in the past year, this was the only one that I can honestly say I didn't like. Whereas these were our favorites. We read some great books. We read James and the Giant Peach. We read Matilda. We read Wonder. We've read The Watsons Go to Birmingham. We read Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes. Swiss Family Robinson. Holes. We've read so many good books, but these were our top 3 when we sat down to really think about it, and this was our not so favorite. And I hate that because I really wanted to enjoy it. I love all things Disney and things like that, and I really wanted to like Mary Poppins, but I just didn't. So again, remember, these are just my opinions. Don't, if you want to read Mary Poppins, read it. But like I said, click on that description. Don't click on the description. Click on the link in the description. It'll take you to the Arrow single issues, and you can go through that list. It's in alphabetical order. You could even print it if you wanted to and have that list available, so when you do go to the library or to a used bookstore, you'll have some really, like a really good list to start with. And remember, she does have guides for older and younger, but the Boomerang's right there in the middle, and you're going to find a ton of good literature on those lists. You definitely need to check out Julie Bogart. She does have a Facebook page, and then you can also find Brave Writer on YouTube and online. So you want to check all those out. She has just a ton of information about reading and literature and language arts that you need to check out. So definitely check out the other moms in this playlist. They're going to share their favorites and not so favorites. So if you're looking for read-alouds for next year, this is a great place to come. And thank you again to Katie at Life in the Mundane for hosting this collab. And as always, thank you so much for watching.